it looks like the Red Sox may be getting some help sooner than expected. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and once a month I try to give you guys a bit of an update on what's going on with the Red Sox IL, right? Where we go over sort of a comprehensive list of everyone on the IL. That's exactly what we're doing today, but last month it felt like there wasn't a ton of movement, right? We were still a ways away from getting a lot of these major pieces back from the IL. This month's a little bit different. We're starting to see some legitimate headway for a lot of these guys in their return back to this Red Sox roster. So we are going to do in today's videos, we're going to break down every single person's status on the Red Sox IL. We're going to talk about where they are in their rehab, how much longer we can expect them to be on the IL before they rejoin this Red Sox team, and we're going to be talking about what their impact once they get back to the Red Sox may look like. But before we get into that, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's start with Trevor Story, because obviously he's been on the IL the longest, and there's finally some legitimate movement in Trevor Story's return. Before the All-Star break, he had started throwing, he was fielding, he was taking BP against rehabbing pitchers in their bullpens. Well, during this All-Star break, Trevor Story started throwing from about 160 to 170 feet, which is basically long toss for those of you who do not know. What this means is Trevor Story is getting closer and closer to making his first rehab appearance. In fact, for the All-Star break, Trevor Story sat down with some members of the Red Sox media, and he talked about how he believes that they are going to start his rehab assignment very quickly here after the break is over. So tomorrow the break ends and the Red Sox face the Chicago Cubs. Now, I don't think Trevor Story is going to go on his rehab assignment the second we get out of this All-Star break, but it's going to be pretty close. It's going to be within the next week. We are going to see Trevor Story either with the Woo Sox or with the Sea Dogs. Now, for those of you who do not know, there is a maximum of 20 days in a rehab assignment. So basically what we're talking about here in terms of Trevor Story's timeline is that Trevor Story should be back with this Red Sox team. Worst case scenario, the end of August. Best case scenario, the beginning of August. But the most realistic scenario is we are going to get Trevor Story back on this Red Sox team sometime mid-August, which would be huge for the Boston Red Sox, because not only is he an elite defender, for those of you who do not know, he was a very, very good shortstop. He was a Gold Glove caliber second baseman, and now that his arm is fully healed and ready to go, he shouldn't have any more injury problems throughout the rest of the year. So the Red Sox could be getting back a guy who at bare minimum is going to give you well above league average defense, but his bat is also going to be a key role for the Red Sox success over the last couple of months of the season, right? I feel like the Red Sox lately have been relying on Justin Turner to be a lot of their right-handed production. To get a guy like Trevor Story back, who is going to spend a lot of time in the minor leagues rehabbing, not only trying to get back to being able to make plays at shortstop and second base, but also figuring out his timing. Putting his bat back in this lineup is going to be absolutely critical to the Red Sox success going forward. So the sooner we get him back, the absolute better. It looks like finally we're starting to get some headway there. So expect to see Trevor Story rehabbing again with the Boston Red Sox in either Worcester or Portland in the next couple of days. John Schreiber may be, in my opinion, the most underrated piece for this Red Sox team currently on the IL, right? We talk about guys all the time like Story, like Sale, like Houck, like Whitlock, but Schreiber coming back for this Red Sox bullpen would be absolutely critical for the second half of the season, especially with the way the Red Sox bullpen has been abused lately because of the injuries to the rotation. And the good news for the Red Sox is that John Schreiber is knocking on the door of this Red Sox roster, right? He's already made 2 rehab appearances in Worcester. Both of them went pretty well. Both of them 1 inning. Both of them no earned runs. Only 1 hit in those 2 rehab appearances. A couple of strikeouts. John Schreiber is getting closer and closer to returning. In fact, the latest update we have on John Schreiber is that he's probably going to make 1 more rehab appearance after the All-Star break, and then he's rejoining this Red Sox team. So you're probably looking at getting John Schreiber back within the next week, which again is absolutely huge for the Boston Red Sox bullpen that has been absolutely decimated decimated due to the fact that the rotation has fallen apart over the last couple of weeks. So getting John Schreiber back is going to be absolutely fantastic. Again, the latest update with John Schreiber is that he is going to rejoin this Red Sox team probably within the next week or so. Tanner Houck is eating solid foods again, which is great news. Right after his surgery, he wasn't able to eat solid foods for a while. He finally had his first solid food, an Uber Eats breakfast, for those of you who are wondering. But in terms of his timeline, this also means Tanner Houck is going to start ramping up throwing. He started throwing again on Tuesday from a flat surface. The goal is to slowly ramp him up over time and have him start doing bullpens by the end of the month. So by the end of July, Tanner Houck will be back on the mound throwing bullpens with this Red Sox team. Obviously, he still has to do his rehab assignment and stuff like that. So his timeline in terms of returning to the Boston Red Sox is probably looking right around the same as Trevor Story's. You're probably looking at mid-August, hopefully a little bit earlier than that, but mid-August seems like the safe date to say. There has been rumors that the Red Sox could be trying to ramp up Tanner Houck in a role other than a starter to get him back sooner and in a Red Sox uniform as soon as possible. But in my opinion, with the way that the rotation is structured right now, you really need him to come back as a starter depending on where Whitlock and Sale are in their rehabs. In my opinion, you're probably going to see him ramped up as a starter, but there is a chance that he gets ramped up as a multi-inning reliever or a one-inning reliever, stuff like that, to try and get him back on this team as soon as possible. But again, the latest update is that Tanner Houck has started throwing, and he's going to keep throwing over the next couple of weeks to hopefully get to a bullpen-style type rehab pitching by the end of the month, and then starting his rehab appearances at the end of July. And speaking of rotation pieces, Chris Sale also has news in his rehab appearance. The last we heard was about a week ago, where the MRI did come back from Chris Sale completely clean, and he is now on a throwing regimen where he is throwing every other day to try and ramp his body back up to being able to throw multi-innings. Now, that was 9 days ago where he started throwing every other day, so it's probably realistic to assume that he has either started or he is going to be starting his regimen of pitching every single day to try and get his body back to where it needs to be. There is still not really any timeline as to when Chris Sale is going to return, but he is eligible to come off the IL August 2nd, and if he is throwing every other day, or if he's getting closer to being able to throw every day and he's going to start doing bullpens pretty soon, that's not an unrealistic date for him to come back. It's probably not likely that he's back on the 2nd, but it might be close to then, depending on when they start his rehab assignments. He's most likely going to need 2 or 3 starts in AAA or AA or wherever seems fit for Chris Sale at that time before he rejoins the Boston Red Sox. But he is on a timeline to come back to this team this year, which is fantastic, right? Because before, with this sort of stress thing going on with the left side of his body, the last we heard about that was Jacob deGrom, who was out the rest of the year. Chris Sale doesn't appear to be out the rest of the year. He will join this team again sometime in August, so it feels like we're getting a lot of these guys back sometime in August. But again, the latest on Chris Sale is that he has been throwing every other day, and he's really starting to ramp himself up. And the best news with Chris Sale, there's no setbacks, right? I feel like every time Chris Sale gets injured, there's always some sort of setback. No setbacks right now for Chris Sale. The last sort of missing piece in this Red Sox rotation is Garrett Whitlock. For those of you who do not know, Whitlock has a bone bruise, which basically means that he just needs time to heal. Right now, he's on the 15-day IL, scheduled to come back sometime within the next 10 days, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen. Garrett Whitlock will probably be out for a couple more weeks. My guess is Garrett Whitlock would rejoin this Red Sox team right at the beginning of August, and probably in a starter type role. Again, with the rotation the way it is, it wouldn't really make a ton of sense to have Garrett Whitlock come back on this Red Sox team somewhere in a bullpen role, especially with the state of the fact that you only have 3 starters right now. You need either Whitlock, Houck, or Sale to come back and be in this rotation. And if Whitlock's the closest, and if Whitlock doesn't have the most rehab to get through to get back to this rotation, he's probably going to end up in it. For those of you who wanted him in the bullpen, it's not going to happen, right? He's going to come back in this rotation, and this is all good news, right? The Red Sox rotation has been in a bit of shambles since Garrett Whitlock went down. To have movement on Houck, Sale, and Whitlock all coming back and making strides to get back into this rotation could be really big for the Boston Red Sox, whose schedule to finish out the month of July July is a little bit lighter than we've seen over the past couple of weeks, then it starts to get really difficult again in August. If these guys can get back healthy and be the pitchers that they were before they went down, it could be a huge boost to this Red Sox team as, again, they try and push towards a wild card spot. But Garrett Whitlock, not a ton of news in terms of his rehab assignments. Again, if it's a bone bruise, he simply just needs time to heal. Pablo Reyes should be back as soon as tomorrow. He's another guy like John Schreiber who's been making rehab appearances. He was actually with Yu Chang making appearances for a while. He was just 1 or 2 days behind him. So Pablo Reyes should be available to come back almost as soon as this break is over, starting tomorrow. The biggest question with Pablo Reyes is right now you've got Yu Chang, you've got Christian Roy, you've got Kike Hernandez. There's not really room for a fourth middle infielder on the bench or with this Red Sox team. So someone's going to be the odd man out. Statistically, it would make sense that the odd man out is Kike Hernandez, but we don't really know what's going to happen there. And I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if Pablo Reyes is the odd man out there. Again, if we're talking statistics, it has to be Kike Hernandez, but if we're talking about what the Red Sox have put into Kike and everything like that, I would say there's a chance that Pablo Reyes ends up being the odd man out here. Not my choice, but that's my opinion. Reese Maguire has resumed baseball activities, but that's really the only news we have on him right now. We don't know really what his timeline looks like. We don't really know what his rehab is going to look like. And to be honest with you, I kind of forgot he was on the IL. With how well Connor Wong's been doing both at the plate and behind it these past couple of weeks, to be honest with you, I haven't really missed Reese Maguire all that much, but you did see the noticeable difference defensively and honestly offensively when Jorge Alfaro was in this lineup, and especially when Caleb Hamilton was in this lineup. So it will be, I guess, nice to get Reese Maguire back in that backup catcher role. But again, I have no idea what his timeline currently looks like. The only news we have is he had resumed baseball activities. The last we heard is that he's going to need a lot of time to come back, and now it's been about 3 weeks now. It's probably going to end up being a couple more weeks before we even see Reese Maguire in a rehab assignment. Kluber is throwing again. I'm not really sure how many people actually care about Corey Kluber's rehab assignment. He didn't really have any impact on this team in a positive way. Same thing goes for Ort, who again is starting to throw again, but I don't know if anyone really cares about that. Richard Blyer should be back right around the same time Schreiber comes back. Again, I honestly would prefer Brennan Bernardino in this bullpen in terms of lefty options as opposed to Richard Blyer, but Richard Blyer is getting closer to his return. The final sort of update I have for you guys in terms of overall IL injuries is that Adalberto Mondesi, to me, is starting to really become a figment of Red Sox fans' imaginations. He has not resumed baseball activities yet. He's not really lifting weights or doing anything like that. He's mostly just running right now. I would be absolutely shocked if we ever saw Adalberto Mondesi in a Red Sox uniform at this point. It doesn't look like he's coming back this year. I know he's under arbitration next year, but I really don't see the point of having him around at this point in time. So we may never even see Adalberto Mondesi in a Red Sox uniform. And that's really all of the latest updates I have on Red Sox injury news. The good news here is we're starting to see a lot of movement from a lot of key guys, right? Story's about to make his rehab appearance. Houck is starting to throw again. Sale is starting to throw again. Whitlock is only a couple weeks away. These are big pieces for a Red Sox team who have put themselves in a position to push towards the playoff over the last 2 months of the season, right? Obviously, things can change, and if these guys come back and they aren't the players that we expect them to be, obviously that's going to be a problem as well. But if we're talking about light at the end of the tunnel, we're starting to see it. We're starting to see the light coming through at the end of the tunnel where, hey, these major injuries that we've been saying for months now, that if we can stay afloat until these guys get back, we could actually make a run at this thing, is starting to actually become a reality. And that's a really, really good thing for the Boston Red Sox. Hopefully everything goes well and there aren't any setbacks going forward, but it looks like the day 2 circle on your calendar for a fully healthy Red Sox team, again, knock on wood, is right around mid-August. So let me know in the comment section down below. 1, what do you think of the latest Red Sox injury news? Who are you most excited to see back on this Red Sox roster? What do you expect their impact to be once they get back to the Boston Red Sox? Let me know all your thoughts on the July latest updates in terms of the Red Sox IL in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.